Hi everyone, it's been a long time since I've done a video. The reason is that I've been very busy over the last few months with university and a job on top of that. The next 1 to 2 months I'm going to be equally as busy, if not more so, because I have exams. Thereafter I will have more time to devote to my personal projects, although I'm currently working on a redevelopment of the Hive project, and for that reason I may have less time than I desire for other projects like this one. But I do intend on getting this finished, so it's just a case of continually developing. So today we're going to look at how to make an interactive third-person platformer. Now, I will put a disclaimer at the very start and state we're not going to look at a specific version of a game. We're not going to focus on aesthetics or game mechanics really. The principle of this video is simply to demonstrate how you can hook into the existing Blender Game Engine logic brick system and Python API and integrate it with networking to give you an interactive game. So I've mentioned already that the intention of this network system is to provide a superset of functionality that was already provided in my previous version, and also to make it more possible for developers to both share multiplayer functionality, to extend other people's work, and the multiplayer system, and also to achieve more complex tasks. So with that in mind, let's actually show you the very primitive game. I'll start the server, I start the client with F1 and F2, and you'll see immediately that the player can move forward and backwards, which we've covered in a previous tutorial. And you'll notice as well that on the left hand side there's a sphere that is centered around the player, and the purpose of that sphere is a near sensor, and it's designed to detect a door object, which is what you can see on the right hand side in front of the player. So when the player approaches this door, it will have the ability to open the door if it presses the spacebar, and you'll see that on the right hand side, which is the client, the door opens and closes. You'll also notice that the client doesn't have this near sensor. At least it doesn't have one visible, and it also doesn't open the door on the server. But let's make things a bit more exciting. Let's create another client, and this might break because I don't test multiple clients particularly often. Anyway, here's my client, and if I ask my other player to open the door, you'll see that both of them can see this door opening. Now, what's equally as fun is if we ask this player to approach the door and hit space, and now you can see that one player opened the door, and if I hit space now, it's not opening, and if I select the other player, they too can shut the door. So there is the ability to interact with the system through both players, and it's the same code. I haven't done anything differently, so it will scale. So how does this all work? Well, it's quite simple really, but we need to break it down into its constituent parts. So let's open up one of these Blender instances and make it slightly larger. I'm just going to boost up my audio to see if it's slightly better, because it was quite quiet before. So I'm sorry if it gets too loud. But essentially, yes, we have here the selection for the network mode. And if we switch to this file here, or the scene even, this is the main network scene. Now I've mentioned this before, but there's only ever one network scene, and now if you select the networking option in the scene panel, it will actually disable other network scenes. There's a reason for this, and it's to do with the current design of the network system, and it probably won't change in the future, and I think it probably is for good reason as well. So anyway, in your network scene, we have this door object. It's composed of two parts. There is the door frame, which is this object with the squares here, and it's designed for side-on view, which is why it looks a bit weird. And we've also got this door panel, and the purpose of the door panel is, as you've already seen, to just rotate up and down when it opens. So let's first look at how the door actually goes about opening. What's the interface for this door? And if you look at the door frame, you'll see that we have this property changed sensor, and when that is triggered, it will evaluate two expression controllers. We could equally have done two property sensors, one to detect open and one to detect not open. And essentially, whenever this property of open is changed, it triggers the appropriate open or close animation. Now, these animations you can see are actually running on door panel, which is this child object of the door. And so these two have to work together. But it's the door frame which has the open property. Now, door frame also has a door property, and the purpose of door as a property is so that the player can detect that this is an interactable door and not just any object. And so we need it to make sure that we don't try and open static geometry which doesn't have an open property, for example. So whenever we trigger basically this particular door to open, it will do its correct logic as necessary. But how does this, where does this happen rather? Well, the door frame is running this logic on state 1, which is the initial state, and because it's a network object, that must correspond to a network state. And you'll see here that the client net mode state for 1 is what's being run here. So this is only running on the client. So how is this running on the client then? Because the property needs to be changed for all clients. And so where is it getting that property from? Well, you'll see that open is a replicated attribute, and it's replicating because you can see the speaker icon is enabled. And because of this, the server will send the open attribute from the server to all the connected clients, according to some certain rules. So provided we can set this property on the server on this object, it will set it on all the clients. So how does this get set on the server? Well, this is the next part of the tutorial. So if we go to the second layer, which is where my Suzanne object is being kept, you can see that we have a bit less logic than in the third tutorial, or rather the previous tutorial series, which was devoted to creating an interactive shooter, although in loose quotations. You'll see that we have 2 states and they're quite sparse. If we select the client state, you'll see all of the logic that you're familiar with, pretty much. But we also have this message that's being triggered from the keyboard. So keyboard C on open button, which basically means the client's open button, which in this case is space, and that triggers a message which sends the RPC open door RPC call. Now this RPC call is defined in the RPC calls list, and it doesn't take any arguments, it just runs on the server, as you can see here. So when we send this, the server will receive this. So let's go to the server net mode state, and you'll see that we have 2 interesting components here. If I select the state 18, which is the one with the door logic, you'll see that we have an RPC call message sensor, and we also have a near sensor. And those are combined to detect when we're near a door and the player presses the spacebar. And when that happens, we run the door. Well, we're already running the door.toggle anyway, if any of them triggers. And inside of the toggle method, or function even, we detect whether all of the connected sensors are positive, and if they are, we can then open the door. And to do that, we just toggle the door open state. So we can use the same code to close the door as we did to open it. So now that this has been set on the door will take control of the animations and replication. So this is how you make an interactive item in this game. Firstly, you've got to work out who owns the item. 9 times out of 10, you're going to want to spawn anything on the server because then other clients can see it. And if you spawn something on your client, it won't be seen on the server because it's not replicated that way. It only replicates from the server to the client. So to quickly clarify what you want to do in that case, if you wanted to spawn an object that all the clients could see from a client, you'd have to send an RPC call to the server to do that. Okay, so this is basically it. You have your interaction logic, which is very simple. It's basically the same as detecting a key press and being near a door. So we're basically substituting the interaction component for a remote interaction. And then the door, which is the interactable object, is pretty much the same as any object you might expect. That when the property is changed, it triggers the open animation, and when it's closed, it triggers the close animation, and it delegates the responsibility of replication to the network system. Now, if you wanted to run this animation on both the server and the client, all you need to do is enable the server to have the same state as the client, as we do here. So now, if we check that looks okay, go to the camera view, and then go to the selection window, we can start the game, hit F1, and I'm going to start a client here. And you'll see we're going to walk up to this door, and hopefully, if we've done everything correctly, we can hit space, and the door plays animation as well. So that's how you create an interactable object, and you can extend this to lots of different game components depending on what you're trying to do. So that's all for this tutorial today, and I may pursue this later on, but for now this is the end of this tutorial. So before we go, there are a few things we need to discuss. Generally speaking, the code base is doing quite well. There are one or two things which may or may not function correctly. Player disconnection, I don't think in this particular version of the code is working properly. It's probably an oversight on my part that I will fix. Besides that, there can be occasions I've noticed when the checkbox for the networking panel in the scene properties is becoming disabled, and therefore you have no network scenes. The game will still start when you do that, but it will have some obscure error about net mode or something, or scene or something along those lines. So just do check when you run your game that it doesn't have any problems with that. I have noticed on occasion that it seems to crash while saving. So all of these things are little bugs that I need to resolve at some point. Besides this, please let me know how you get on, and I will keep you posted.